big breaking news right now as we speak. Moments ago, House Intelligence Chair Adam Schiff sent a letter to Vice President Mike Pence asking for him to declassify the supplemental testimony of Jennifer Williams, his special advisor on Europe and Russia. That's his advisor, Pence's. In the letter, Chairman Schiff said the testimony contains information about the vice president's September 18th telephone call with Ukraine's president, adding declassification on this supplemental testimony will allow the Congress to see further corroborative evidence. Jill.
That's interesting. I mean, keep in mind that the White House and even Pence's office has really tried to distance themselves from her, saying, look, she is just a State Department appointee. Sources told me, the vice president wouldn't even recognize her if he was in the room with her. And we'll remember that she had testified not only that she was on that call, but also that she had been told that it was the president who directed the vice president to cancel his trip to Zelensky's inauguration. There was some debate within the vice president's office about exactly the chain of command and how that went through. I have no idea what's in that supplemental testimony. I didn't realize that there actually was other testimony that we hadn't seen, but that's really interesting.
Who gets to declassify something like that?
The executive, the president.
Not the VP?
Well, no, the entire classification system, the entire system is built for the president. And so the president can delegate to other officials the ability to classify or declassify. But in the end, it's his call. And by the way, with all the concern that Republicans expressed about the depositions being secret and not transparent, now, in part, you see why. There's classified information there.
What do you think the VP's role is here?
I mean, I think that has been one of the biggest questions that has been hanging over all of this. The vice president's office has tried very consistently to distance himself, claiming, he didn't know anything about this. I mean, the case where it was actually after his meeting in Warsaw with Zelensky, where there was that kind of pull-aside conversation where apparently some of these threats were made. Pence didn't know about that. Pence knew nothing about any of these pressure efforts. It's an interesting argument that Pence's folks try to make, because what it essentially then suggests is that, well, how much does the vice president know if he was in the room with this guy and didn't even know any of this was happening?
I think there's downsides to being Donald Trump's vice president.
Yeah. I mean, I doubt that there are many things that are happening without them getting approval from the president. I mean, what we've seen is that this all comes back to the president. This is not about the vice president. It's not about Giuliani. I've heard a lot of stories about all the people surrounding him. I think that ultimately it falls back on President Trump and what he has directed the people to do around him, which is to violate the Constitution, to seek foreign interference, to help his reelection campaign. And again, for me, it was a clear national security issue.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.